the presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any further questions or discussion about the budget?
Jim, I think Mr. Mayor had also submitted some questions.
Yes, that's correct. Mr. Mayor had asked, how was a $300,000 line item for K through 5 reading adoption missed in the preparation of the preliminary budget? And the second part of the question was, were there any other items missed in the preparation of the budget? The $300,000 reading adoption line item was missed by my secretary, who inputted the sheets that were presented by all the departments. Dr. Oldham had a note on the top of her sheets of a $300,000 K-5 reading adoption program. But I think what the secretary thought was that when the principals submitted their budgets that included textbook line items, that in those textbook line items was the reading material that would be needed. So apparently there was a misunderstanding between the textbook items that were submitted from two different sources. Was there any other items missed in the preparation of the budget? I'm sure there were some items missed. Again, all departments are responsible for reviewing the first draft and communicating back to us whether there are items that need to be added or if there were any mistakes that were made. Budget materials come from many sources, the principals, the department heads, Bob Lozier, Tammy Cavanaugh, etc., and even myself. So again, once you prepare a first draft, then we take that first draft and we continue to massage it and work the numbers. So hopefully we didn't miss anything else, but again, that is possible. The question was, I think we've already touched on this one. The question number 2 was, is the $645,000 loss in state revenue in basic education due to loss of federal stimulus money? Yes, it is. I took out, the state had plugged $645,785 in this year's basic ed subsidy with federal stimulus dollars. I took that amount out because we know that federal stimulus money will not be there for the state to help them balance their budget. Hence, the net amount that's in here is purely state money. The question number 3 was on transportation costs. Are projected to increase $64,000. And why is that? Yes, this is a net increase over the 10-11 budget, and I stress net because without the contract amendment that was made on July 27, 2010, the budget change would have been greater. The main driver for the annual increase in busing costs is the index that the bus contract is tied to. This index is the CPI-W, which is the Wage and Earners Index for the Metropolitan Statistical Area, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which we reside in. The annual change is done on a calendar year basis, and for calendar year 2010, the index went up by 2%. That 2% then is applied to the various categories that are costed out through our bus contract. The main part of our busing contract is in function 2720, and right now that is projected to go up a net 1.28%. And the reason why it didn't go up the full 2% is obviously we received a reduction in the mileage extension charges due to the contract amendment that we did last summer. The other part of the busing function is 2750, which is non-public busing. Together between these two categories makes up the $63,302. Part of the busing questions that Mr. Mayor submitted, I titled it 3A. Didn't we negotiate an $80,000 savings in transportation after last year's budget was passed? Yes, the board passed the resolution on July 27th to accept reduced charges for extended mileage on bus runs in two categories. One is when we extend regular bus runs, 10 or more miles a day, of which, of course, we had 10 bus runs that are transporting down from the Laurel Valley area this year that were affected by that mileage extension clause. And then also he being Lodestar Bus Line and Dave Klein, reduced the mileage charge for out-of-district trips, for example, for student activities and for sports. So that did help and will help reduce our expenditure in this year's budget, and also helps when I run the calculations for next year's budget. 3B, which was part of his transportation questions, will we really have increased transportation costs for 2011-2012? Yes, we will, unless, of course, we cut bus runs. Then I would have to do a new calculation. But right now, the bus contract, the bus budget projections are based on the 29 existing regular bus runs, plus all the other categories of services that are offered. They're tied to that 2% CPIW index factor. If we didn't, again, have the mileage rate reduction for those bus runs coming down from Laurel Valley, our net increase for 11-12 would have been even greater than what is being projected. Perhaps the best example for why the bus contract increases is if we just look at those 29 main regular bus runs. That's those big 66 passenger buses. For the 10-11 budget, we had a daily rate of $232.11 per bus, times the 29 buses, times 180 days, gave us a calculation of $1,211,614. For 11-12, the calculation works out like this. The daily rate per bus, $232.11, gets increased by the 2% CPIW factor, which changes that rate to $236.76 per bus. Again, times it by the 29 buses, times it by 180 days, gets you $1,235,887, which just in that one line item is a cost increase of $24,273. So just in one line item, that demonstrates why the bus contract does increase. What you did was you reduced a cost category, but that cost category is still there, and again, it will get increased by that CPIW index. Question 3C of the transportation questions. Can Jim explain the mileage extensions on the white expenditure sheet on page 261? Yes, we have a number of bus runs that have mileage extensions to them. There's the 10 buses for the Laurel Valley end that are coming down this year. Plus we had 5 bus runs that in previous years were extended. Specifically, we had 4 bus runs that had to pick up the routes of 4 buses that were cut. We cut 4 bus runs. That was either in the 03-04 budget preparation or 04-05, I forget which one. But when you cut a bus run, you still have to service the area that the bus that was cut. Obviously, you have to pick up those kids. So those existing bus runs had to pick up those coverage areas. So there was an extension of mileage for those bus runs. And then there was one bus run from the Cook Township area that we extended to add service to other areas. So basically, that's where the mileage extension clause comes into play. Our transportation contract, as it exists today, is based on a contract that went into effect, I think that was back in '97. So each contract since then has been a renegotiated contract, extended for a certain term based on certain concessions that were made by the contractor. At some point in the future, if we rebid the contract, we'll start off with a new base rate for each bus run, or maybe at some point in the future, we can eliminate those mileage extensions and get all our bus runs down to a common daily factor.
If I could ask a question, and you might have explained this, and I may have just missed this. I'm trying
Yes, let me explain that.
That's from,
When we did the 10-11 budget, we put one lump sum in for the effect of closing Laurel Valley Middle High School and bringing those students down. So in the line item in the 10-11 budget, I kept the original mileage extensions that were affected by the closing of 4 bus runs in the past and extending one other bus run. I put in, I think it was like $227,000, which was one lump sum, which included the 10th additional bus, plus all the mileage extension that went into those bus runs to come down. So doing the 11-12 budget then, I take out that lump sum and I recalculate it based on a normal budgeting format, which is I put in the 29 regular buses, plus all the mileage extension that went into that procedure of bringing the students down. So last year, for expediency's sake, after we did the vote in April for the May draft, then I put in that original calculation that Mr. Klein and I had made for the study of studies, so to speak, the calculation amount from the October 2009 presentation that we made. Does that help answer the question? Okay, the next question was, how does the $837,291 projected federal revenue, does the $837 projected federal revenue represent Title I, ROTC, Title II, and medical assistance? Yes, it does. The 4 categories, ROTC, $60,000, Title I, $546,813, Title II, $159,078, and the medical access, $71,400. Question number 5, under the yellow expenditure function summary, the following categories have 0 expenditures for 2010, 2011, and various amounts of expenditures for 2011/12. Blind or visually impaired. Yes, for 09-10 was the last year that the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit supplied blind or visually impaired services via a teacher by the name of Kathy Britton for 2 students that we had that graduated that year. So when we planned the 11-12 budget, obviously we planned 0 expenditures there for that category because we knew those 2 students had graduated and we did not anticipate needing those services from the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit. Therefore, we did not budget anything for blind services for 10-11 school year last spring. But again, that's one of those categories in special education where you never know what's going to happen. Emotional support was another one of those categories where we were not incurring emotional support services through the intermediate unit. Hence, that's why we had budgeted $0 there when we were planning the 10-11 budget last spring. Computer assisted instruction. This is a function that we have been using for what's called CFF grant money, which we did have an amount in 09-10 school year. We did not anticipate having any CFF monies for the 10-11 budget. The reason why then we budgeted $0 in the 10-11 budget. And then the other question here was under refund of prior year revenue.